Good afternoon, everyone. It's absolutely a pleasure for me to see such luminaries here because as a young officer, there was no way I could have had access to any of you. But all your names are so much I mean, they're also familiar to me. It's such a pleasure to be here. I hope that this time that we spend together will have some meaning for all of you, and the purpose for which we have come together here right now will serve some purpose. Feel free to stop me at any stage if I'm not clear or if you don't agree with anything that I say. And what I'm trying to do now is, if you all agree, we could start with a very, very tiny prayer. Whenever we do Swami Vivekananda's work, we start with a small prayer. So if you don't mind, we could all just close our eyes. Namah Shri Yatirajaya Vivekananda Suraye Sachit Sukha Svarupaya Swamini Tapaharine. All the ideas on values that we have been doing in the Ramakrishna Mission are the values which were instilled in Swami Vivekananda by Sri Ramakrishna Paramahamsa, and the interpretation of Swami Vivekananda is so relevant even today. Swami Vivekananda has been made the youth icon in our country. It was a conscious decision by the then government. And every year on January 12th, schools celebrate with gusto this particular day as the Youth Day. But unfortunately, many of the ideas that he wanted to bring across in education has yet remained a distant dream. And so what we in the Ramakrishna Mission Delhi are doing is to try and give a structured approach free to anyone who may want to take it further and do it in a particular way. So we don't really want to go in for ad hoc interventions, which of course many people are doing in different ways. Ours, the uniqueness of ours is that it's a well thought out, extremely well researched, piloted, well developed program using experts who have both a spiritual orientation as well as an understanding of child psychology and an understanding of cognitive knowledge and how to how to actually enable value assimilation in school. So that is where we are. Of course, we deal with colleges as well. We do deal with adults in different forms, but our focus has been primarily school education. And that's where we have gained a lot of strength over the last 6 years. So what I thought I'll do is I'll show you a small presentation that will enable us to focus our ideas. And then probably either during that or at any time thereafter, we'd be happy to answer your questions. My team members are here. Some of them are here to learn from what we are going to discuss, and some of them will be able to actually contribute and add value to our discussion. So this being the state, if you all permit, Sunilji, is it okay? Shall I start the presentation?
Certainly, Dr. Anuradha, please go ahead.
All right. Thank you very much, everyone. Nishant, would you like to show the presentation, please? The slide mode, please. Gentlemen and ladies, what we are trying to do here is to take you through what we in the Ramakrishna Mission Delhi have done in terms of value education. And later on, we'll discuss whether it can be taken further by taking it across to the Kasturi Rangan Committee. That we will see, but right now I'll spend some time telling you what we are currently doing. As I have repeatedly said already, our entire work is based on Swamiji's ideas. Swami Vivekananda, among many things that he said about education, he said that we want that education by which character is formed. We want that education by which character is formed, strength of mind is increased, the intellect is expanded, and by which one can stand on one's own feet. He took into consideration everything: character, strength of mind, intellect, and of course, the ability to stand on our own feet and lead a good life in all its dimensions. Yes, please. Now, this is just, we could all have a difference of opinion, but if you look at education at present, you'll find that there is an information overload. Children are bogged down by information. There's less individual attention. No doubt a lot of strides have been made in India as far as school education is concerned. We know that more and more children are coming to school, midday meal, everything's happening. But there are certain fundamental problems, and that is information overload, less individual attention, focus on scores and grades, and top-down learning. I'll tell you, you learn the keywords, write it down, you'll get the marks. That is broadly the way in which education is given. So whether that's called education or not is a moot point. And then, so what happens, unfortunately, is most children have a stressful school experience. They don't enjoy these several years that they spend in schools. And the output as a result is that literacy itself is low. Year after year they pass, but they can barely write or read, many of them. Skills, of course, are low. Many of the children who pass out, even from engineering colleges, are unemployable. Knowledge, well, there's a huge distance between what we call education and knowledge. Solution-orientedness does not seem to be something which is engendered in our children. There's a lot of distraction, there's a lot of disconnect, and excess competition is a big problem. Collaboration seems to have gone out of the window, and it's all about how do I individually compete for a small slice of the pie. Now, the outcome of all this, as we all know, is stress, depression, conflict, sense of worthlessness, inability to cope, so much so that mental health has become a very big issue even before COVID. But during the COVID period, we realized that it has actually grown by leaps and bounds. The huge mental health issues and the whole spectrum you will find is actually something which we need to look at. Let's move on. Please stop me. Do you all broadly agree that, just go back, please? Do you broadly agree with what I'm saying about education, or you feel it's too pessimistic a scenario?
I have one word.
Yes.
When you talk about outcome,
yes,
this is not the outcome for all institutions.
Yes.
Yes, I agree. The situation is very bad, but at the same time, let us not generalize.
My point is, do you feel that there is adequate amount of stress, depression, conflict, sense of worthlessness, and inability to cope in India today? Is there an adequate amount for us to be caused concern, or do you think that our present school education is not leading?
We are not measuring. When you say adequate amount, we are not at this stage measuring. All that I'm saying, I'm making a very limited point that we cannot brush all education in India with this kind of brush.
Right. So what you would like to do, how would you like us to present this then? Would you like us to present it as a concern where we want to bring in values, or shall we say that it is not a very major problem? How would you like, if you were presenting it, Mr. Gupta, what would you advise us to do?
Well, I can be in touch with you and we can work on this. As a matter of fact, I'll forward to you if I get your email ID. A piece I wrote on the outcome budget.
Okay.
In the journal of development effectiveness.
Right.
And I have gone into all these issues: input, output, and outcomes.
Right. I'd love to see that. I'll share an email with you at the end of this, and we will revisit the way in which we are presenting things. And this is based on our limited experience, Mr. Gupta, of going to school after school in all the regions in the country, actually seeing what teachers are saying, actually seeing what children are saying. And our feeling is that there is a lot of all this. But now, whether we should call it outcome, whether we should generalize or not, I fully agree with you that probably we can relook at how we put the nomenclature. This, by the way, is only for us right now to discuss. This is certainly not what we are going to take up further. Whatever you take up further will be what you want to take up, right?
Thank you very much.
All right.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah. May I just put in one word?
Yes, please.
That all the schools are not, could not be put under this particular graph that you have put in.
Yes.
There are some schools definitely
Yes.
who are much better and
Yes.
who bring out people who can think and analyze and
Yes.
even innovate. So,
Yes.
I would think just a matter of putting that on the record.
Absolutely.
That all schools don't fit into this graph.
I'm not sure whether I have mentioned here all schools, but whatever it is, what we'll do is, I agree with you, Mr. Mukherjee, that we must always say that there are exceptions. There are many schools which are actually instilling a very joyful school experience. There are many schools who are actually bringing about the right kind of education. We can always say that, right? Yes, Mr. Ambas?
Yeah, I think the main purpose of education is no more information gathering or collection of information, which are now being equated with knowledge. Knowledge is much more comprehensive, and it must lead to behavior modification, which means inculcation of values. The behavior modification in terms of both thought and practice. So there are institutions which are trying to do that, but the basic problem is with the curriculum planning and curriculum transaction. The curriculum, just a moment, let me finish please. Curriculum is basically based on expected learning outcomes that you can measure through examinations. It should have changed to expected behavioral outcomes, which unfortunately we do not have any means, any standard means and quantifiable means to measure. And that is why the tail is twisting the dog. The examination boards are more or less deciding what goes into the school. Since the boards are not in a position to measure the behavior modification, they still insist on knowledge accumulation, reproduction, and maybe forgetting the knowledge that they. I am not using the knowledge in the comprehensive term. I am using knowledge as information. So the boards are more or less deciding what goes into the transactional processes in the school. The behavior modification, if there is any, it is incidental, not deliberate. Every teacher is trying to make his children, his students to get 100% marks. But he is not concerned about how he has modified his behavior, imbibing the values that we cherish as a human being. So the problem lies there. That is my way of thinking. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. I'll go ahead for a few slides, and then you'll see that probably many of the things that what I'm putting across here is that the Ramakrishna Mission Delhi has actually also done a whole lot of research and has also fully agreed with all the things that Mr. Ambas has said just now. So let's move on from here, please. Now, of course, I think many of you would have looked at the National Education Policy. Basically, what I wanted to highlight here is that there are certain things that they've brought out about learning how to learn, not just what to learn, but learning how to learn, how it should be inquiry-driven, discovery-oriented, learner-centered, discussion-based, flexible, and of course, enjoyable. And there is a stress on values, among other things. And education must build character, enable learners to be ethical, rational, compassionate, and caring, while at the same time prepare them for gainful employment. Now, I just wanted to tell you that while the National Education Policy was being firmed up, during the Chintan Shivers, the Ramakrishna Mission Delhi was also represented, and we did give several of our points, and NCRT kept back and forth correspondence with Swami Shantatmananda and the team. And so a lot of our inputs were given at the time of formulation of the policy.
कह रहा डीडीए टेस्ट लगेगा, वो उसके कंप्यूटर में लिखा दिखा रहा था ये सब, डीडीए और टेस्ट, और उसका प्रिंटर भी चालू नहीं था, वो पर्ची।
Let's move on to the next slide, please. Now, there are certain ideas of Swami Vivekananda that we take forward in our education. I'm just going to very quickly tell you, it's all about character. It's all about the child teaching himself. So what we do is we remove the obstacles in the learning process. We don't ram down ideas into a child. It's all about bringing out the perfection which is already there in each child, making each child feel very valuable, enabling the child to grow, focusing on concentration of the mind, not on the collecting of facts, and also stressing on the fact that unless positive ideas are brought in, where children feel that in our heritage itself, there's a lot to be proud about, probably they will not have any role models who are homegrown, and they might tend to depend on, latching their wagon to whoever they read about. So we need to really look at the positive ideas that our own forebears have given us. Yes, please. So if you see, this is just happened yesterday, in fact. One of our team members, Dharmendra Pandey, is actually talking to a Kendriya Vidyalaya school which has just opened. And here he's conducting a value education program, the Awakened Citizen program for them. I'm just showing you the rapt attention with which children listen when we do it. Yeah, and we do it online as well. We've been doing it throughout our programs throughout online. During this COVID crisis, we have actually been able to change the modality of the way we do it, and people have responded very well. Yes, please. Now, again, we could change the words output, outcome, etc. But if I were to convey what I'm trying to say, it's like this. Through the Awakened Citizen program for middle schools, which we are running, and through the primary program which we are running called Awakening, we introduce discovery and exploration in the methodology of learning. The whole classroom is converted into a non-judgmental space. There are no right answers, no wrong answers. Everybody's opinion is listened to, valued, and discussion happens on that. The focus is on character development, and there is considerable peer learning. Now, when we did all these things, we found that children are actually loving these classes. They keep asking, when is the next class? When is the next class? And the teachers who are conducting this program in schools, especially if they are conducting it with full interest, are finding themselves to be extremely popular influencers in the schools. As a result, what's happening is children who are undergoing this program are having an improved sense of self-awareness. Who am I? What is my family? Why do I need a job? Is it just to make money? Self-awareness in different ways they get to understand. They develop a thinking toolkit. They realize that any particular situation gives them choices. At least most situations do give them choices. And there is an opportunity for them to use their viveka and see which is a better choice for me and why. Our entire program helps them to focus on solution making, not just stopping at the level of the problem. And as a result, we found that those who undergo our programs are able to see a continuous self-improvement. And we are now in the process of tracking it beyond the school and seeing whether that will continue with them if we continually engage with them. We find that children who have undergone our program, there is a little bit more acceptance of each other, acceptance of other perspectives. We find a fair amount of harmony, internal and external. We find that they are a little bit more empathetic to the situation around them. There's certainly a lot of improved self-confidence. Most of them are with an I can attitude. And there's a fair amount of adaptability, even at a time like this when there is COVID. And we find that they are a bit more resilient than perhaps their counterparts. Again, this is just by observation. It is based on our own, our own experience with the schools during the COVID time and so on. Whether this can be actually statistically significant or not, that I'm not going that far. I'm only telling you about what our intuition and our observation is leading us to. May I move on? Now, let me very quickly take you through the two major programs, in fact, 3 programs, but I'm going to quickly take you through the major programs that we have so that you'll understand that this is called the Awakened Citizen Program. It's for middle school, either from 6th standard to 8th standard or from 7th standard to 9th standard. Schools can choose that. It's a free program. It's called a graded program because every child who goes to the year 2 of the program should have gone through year 1. And those who have gone to year 3 should have gone through year 1 and year 2. This is because in order for them to go deep into an idea, it will take at least some time. And so we have decided that 3 years, at least children should dwell on certain ideas that we have introduced. The basic vision of the program is education is the manifestation of perfection, which is already in man. In other words, every child understands that they are valuable. They may be good at studies, they may not be, they may be good at maths, whatever it is, but there is a lot within them. There's immense potential within them. They actually can just manifest it if they believe in themselves and are able to bring it out, and we show them little ways in which they can bring it out. So what is our mission? To instill a deep sense of Atma Shraddha in every child, because we believe that that is the foundation of education. The very foundation of values is self-belief. Because unless you believe that you're valuable and you want, the question of wanting to lead a valuable life seems to us to be a little, a bit of a far-fetched idea. So unless they have self-belief, belief that they are valuable, they are not likely to continue to live a value-based life. So our program empowers young children to make conscious and responsible choices in life. It's all about making conscious and responsible choices in life after understanding the consequences. We inculcate citizenship values, and the content and the methodology of this program are free from any religious learning. The Ramakrishna Mission believes that any path you take leads to the same goal, and the focus is on awakening human possibilities, regardless of whether the child belongs to any particular denomination or background or whatever. It's equally applicable to all. The approach has been tried and tested to ensure value assimilation in children. I'll show you the statistics. Our material has been endorsed by CBSE. They thoroughly scrutinized our material and endorsed this and have recommended our material to CBSE schools. And we run the programs both online and offline. This online started only after schools had to deal with it online, but we've developed beautiful digital platforms, and we teach teachers how to access that and share it with children. And even that has met with a lot of success. I'll take you through 1 or 2 more programs, and then we can just probably have a small discussion. Yes, please. This year, we introduced a beautiful program for primary school children, and this is from standards 1 to 5, again, a free program. What happens is that this will but will enable young children to dwell on ideas like sharing and caring, facing challenges, how to work on anything that they are doing in a more and more perfectly, or more and more excellently, let's put it. Things like that, simple things which they can understand, but through a beautiful approach of stories, activities, fun-filled things, they understand why it's a good idea to choose one particular option over another. Why does choosing a particular value benefit the child as well as people around the child? And this program, the primary school program, is a feeder into our middle school program. So there is a continuum from the primary school to the middle school. And actually, we initially started with the middle school program because we needed to start somewhere, and we thought that the middle school is the best place to start if we have to start, because by then children have the ability to think for themselves. There are too many influences coming in, and maybe we can give them a very positive influence which they can choose to latch on to. How However, educationists felt that even 6th standard is too late. They felt that primary school is the right time to start. And therefore, in response to educationists, we have introduced the primary school program called Awakening. It's broadly on the same spectrum of making children understand why leading a value-based life, why selecting certain principles on the basis of which they can live is actually beneficial to them. So voluntarily, they will want to do it. And we do it in an interesting and fun way. There are no grades, there is no examination, there is no judgment. It is just giving them exposure in a way in which they can actually understand and learn. Yes, please, the next one. We also have a program for parents because we were told that unless parents are involved, we are getting contradictory signals. What do you expect the school to do? Parents have a different set of values. Children are being told something else in schools, and there is a huge rift. And therefore, we've started a free workshop for parents. It's being run through schools. If any school wants to call a set of parents, we conduct workshops for them free, where we try to build a bond between them and their children and try to make them understand how to be less stressed as a parent, how to probably build a meaningful bond between them and their children so that the potential which is there within the child actually comes out without undue stress. So these are the 3 programs that we have in place for school-going children. If there's any particular question or comment, and if you tell me now, then while I deal with the subsequent slides, I would be able to factor that in.
Yeah, Dr. Amo, I just want to make one point.
Yes.
That there was a time when anything we learned at the school would override anything that we were attacked with outside the school. But
Yes.
now that has degraded to a great extent, and the online learning has not helped either.
Yes.
So I just wanted to make that point, that how do we bring back that kind of a feeling that whatever we learn in school is what is actually correct. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I'll bring it across, but I'll just tell you very briefly what we've tried to do is we've tried to improve the relationship between the teacher and the children, because generation after generation, what happens is the children are having a different way in which we have to deal with them. And if the teachers have a very top-down way of dealing with things, they don't anymore respond to that. It can happen throughout, in college, everywhere. The approach of teaching has to change, and that is also a significant part of what we do. I'll take you a little further there a little later, but the point is extremely valid, that no longer are children willing to just listen to teachers and what they say as the gospel. They are not willing to listen. They question. They are learning a lot primarily from the internet or from WhatsApp messages or half-baked ideas from peers. Even parental influence is getting a bit eroded. Once again, some of you may say that it is not always true, that every home is not like that, and that is valid too. Let's move on.
While we have a program for the parents,
Yes.
is there a program for the other society at large with whom the children interact and receive impressions, strong impressions?
Yes, we are planning to. I will take you there just a little later. We are planning to have a beautiful institute called the Vivekananda Institute of Values, which is going to cater to different stakeholders, grandparents, retired citizens, a whole lot of people who want to be meaningfully engaged in society, but who probably do not know exactly how to go about it. And so we are thinking of different ways, but it will take us some time, and we are all working on it. Yes, Mr. Sharma? Mr. Sharma?
Yeah, you have not unmuted, sir.
Hello. Hello.
Yes, now it's okay, sir.
Right.
Well,
Dr. Anuradha, I have two questions.
Yes, please.
do I have the floor, Ambashed?
Let me finish, Prof. Sambas. I am already in conversation with Dr. Anuradha.
Yes, please, Sharmaji.
Right. Two questions I have. My first question is that you are really addressing all the three inputs for value education. That is A for attitude, B for behavior, and C for character. I call it ABC.
Yes, sir.
Question is that as we grow in age,
Yeah.
say we become adult, and then we become parents ourselves. I'm talking of the young people in particular.
Yes.
We can talk about value education, but we really do not walk value education. Now, how do you fill the gap between talking and walking? Because today the crisis is not on account of the people of your age, of my age. The crisis is because of the young people who ultimately carry the task of building India, building the country and universe for that matter. So how do we address the young people to really understand the concepts of value education, ABC of value education, which you are giving to the children in the school system? Thank you.
Sir, would you like me to answer this, or would you like me to listen to both your questions and answer them?
My first question is that how do we really address ABC to
Right.
the young people?
Right. Would you like me to answer that now?
Yeah, please.
Basically, sir, the only way in which we can encourage young people to do something differently from what they are currently doing is to be a role model ourselves. Unfortunately, they are not seeing adequate number of role models. So what we do in our approach is we all become servant leaders, where we actually demonstrate. Of course, it's very small. Of course, we are now no great shakes. All that is true. But if in some way a young person coming in contact with us, and we come across several, if they get a feeling that here is a person who is actually genuinely trying, here is an authentic person, here is a person who cares about something, that who has empathy, whatever it is, whatever we are trying to instill in young people, are we demonstrating that? Only then we can inspire them to even listen. Now, that is what we are trying to tell teachers also. But first, we as a team try our level best. We slip and slip. But we try our level best to keep that focus going, that no amount of talking is going to help unless we walk the talk, like you rightly said, sir. So I hope I've sort of explained to you that we are conscious of this. And all the time, Swami Shantatvananda ji is constantly telling us that unless you demonstrate character, unless you demonstrate the A, B, C that you spoke about, nobody is going to listen to you.
My second question is about what do we do for the value educators at the college level and the university level. I am running a university.
I'll tell you, sir. I'll tell you, because I'm going to take you there a little later. If I don't address that issue later, do remind me again. I'm going to tell you about anything other than schools just a little later. Okay, sir?
Fine. Thank you.
Yes, Mr. Ambas?
Well, thank you very much. You have very rightly said that the teacher behavior modification is one of the most important, rather the most important factor, because the natural style of learning is by process of imitation. You learn language, you learn walking, you learn simply by imitating the immediate environment. And teacher is never wrong in the eyes of the young children. Teacher is always right, and therefore teacher behavior modification is very essential part of value imparting. Therefore, the intervention in the teacher education program is necessary. Secondly, I have been involved in this value education right from SB Chavan committee, having drafted that report, and I have visited almost all denominations, including Ramakrishna Mission, etc., etc. The problem that arises, which is vexing me even now after 30 years of my foray in the area of value education is that how you quantify, how you say that 30% human values are there or 40% human values, and we are all prone to the examination result which says you have scored 100% in mathematics. So what about value education? Where that change of behavioral modification, how are you going to quantify? Unfortunately, I have not found any answer, and I am seeking this answer from everyone, whoever can guide me in this regard. So would you be able to give us some kind of parameters on which one can quantify the level of humaneness
Yes, sir.
that the child, or through the process of education, either by imitation or by teacher behavior modification, etc., can be achieved?
I'll tell you. The point that you mentioned is absolutely valid, and we are conscious of it, sir. What we do is this. We look at whether there's a shift in behavior of the child. For that, we have a baseline survey. The baseline survey is done in such a way that certain psychological aspects of children, of course, we can only do a large sample. We cannot take the whole universe because ours is a very large. Like when you see this, I'll explain in a bit. What I'm trying to say is that we conduct baseline surveys of children before they go through the program, and we gently observe whether there's a shift in their behavior, and we conduct tests on them. Those tests are not marks. We keep on telling them that there is no right and wrong answer. Please be honest about what you're saying. It really does not matter. It's just what you think. So we give them little pictures. There are scientific experiments. We deal with extremely expert, knowledgeable people who actually create these studies. Then it goes through a particular software like we do for any research. And then we come up with an idea whether there's a shift in behavior for different kinds of things. So it's not about saying that 30% have benefited or this or that, but to see, are people facing challenge? I'm just saying something, for example, but it won't be as broad as this also. But are children willing to take an initiative, or do they keep waiting still for someone to tell them what to do? Let's say that is one parameter. Then we are able to make out whether after our program there is a shift. And we've noticed that there's a considerable shift. And since our programs are run across the board in elite private schools, in small private schools, in Kendriya Vidyalayas, all the Kendriya Vidyalayas are on board. The Navodaya Vidyalayas, all of them are on board. And several government schools, we have a good idea about how our program is being received by the children. When you look at this picture here, you will get an idea that as on September 2021, we are running our program in 5,755 schools all over the country, not just a few. 5,755 schools we are running them in Leh, in Andamans, in the Northeast, in every part of the country. And these are regular, run-of-the-mill schools, like I said. There are JNVs, there's KVs, there's government and defense schools, there are private schools, and so on. And in each case, when you talk about a school, what we are talking about is the number of sections. We are talking about 3 years. So the number of children who are covered, we have enough statistics of that as well. And here on the right hand, you will see how we've been training teachers, because we don't directly instill values in children. Our idea is to train teachers because that is sustainable. We are a handful of 85 people. And how are we going to deal with this massive demand that has been put on us? It is growing just by virtue of the fact that Ramakrishna Mission has a certain kind of reputation. People come to us as well. And they say, let's, our school. And so we keep on growing and growing with a handful of people. So the only way we can do it is to work day and night and make sure that more and more teachers get the right orientation. So that is our approach. We train teachers in workshops, give them practical ideas about how to go about it, watch and enable them, then go and visit the schools where they are teaching while they're conducting the program, again guide, again enable, then use different modalities in which we tell them that we are available to you, and they're constantly ringing you up. So you can imagine that each and every resource person in our midst, and primarily a large number of them are full volunteers, you can imagine the load on them. There's a considerable amount of sacrifice of family, leisure, and other time in order to make sure that you're available to the teacher who wants you. So that is another way in which we are demonstrating our ability to make a difference. And teachers get to know that. And slowly, a few of them show a certain kind of change which keeps us going. Reena, ma'am, you wanted to ask something? Your mic, please, ma'am.
रीना मैम अनम्यूट कर लीजिए.
So thank you so much for coming and speaking to us. And personally, I've gained a great deal to know precisely a lot of things we learn and hear and read from the newspapers and other sources. But I think it's a great input given by you, and I thank you for that first. I have two. One is an observation, and the second is a question. The observation is, you in the initial presentation mentioned about the individual attention is not there adequately, and one of the main reason is we are a populated country and teachers are less, so it really gives a signal that our education infrastructure needs to be increased. It's a very important requirement, and I'm sure in the education policy they will pay some attention to that aspect of it. The question relates to, I think Vinay Shankarji probably made a reference about society. Now, you see, teachers get trained in the school is one aspect of training. But a lot of things they imbibe, as people say, is the family values, and it just grows. And because the children grow what the parents do, they are observing, they are watching. So how do we create a system? Is there a possibility of somebody coming and speaking in the welfare associations in the colonies, residential colonies? Is it possible? Because we keep, having programs on knowledge gathering, like pandemic time, we had lots of programs on health-related issues, most of women-related issues. There are lots of other things that we present, but we have hardly done any kind of presentation addressing the parents about their relationship with the kids. And it will be in an environment which is very different than a school environment. So, and it has probably, in my opinion, even more important than what happens in the school.
Ma'am, you call on us and you'll find people coming.
Thank you. Thanks a lot.
Let's move on to a few slides. I think Mr. Gupta also wanted to ask something, right, Mr. Gupta?
Now, you had raised one issue about building bonds between the students and their parents, Now, this is a very challenging issue, especially with those parents who are not much educated, who don't have much of economic resources. And I know some actual cases where they try to seek help from their parents with their classwork. And they would like to have certain things, so that they can do the homework, etc. Now, how do you build bonds, between the parents and teachers under these circumstances?
So let me explain that we have actually conducted workshops for government school children where they are the children are first generation learners. So the parents are actually, some of them with criminal backgrounds, some of them with who are doing domestic work, or even more marginalized than that. Now, the intelligence of these people is very, very high. When you call them together and you speak to them and connect with them authentically, you will find that they are able to actually understand and express their problems. And as is always the case, we do not talk down to anybody. We try to understand what they are saying, and we have a certain framework which will help them to think. Very briefly, let me tell you, because I don't want to take too much of your time. I'll tell you that it's a very well thought out framework of thinking. It's about acceptance. What do you accept when there is a conflict or a difference of ideas? How do you reflect on things that are happening? How do you involve every single stakeholder around you? They are poor, they may be marginalized, whatever it is, but there are a set of people whom they have to involve. They have to accept other people's perspectives, including whether it's their child or the teacher or whatever it is. So we have a framework which has worked. We have done it all over the country in local languages, and it's worked. And mind you, we've been doing it even online. And there, what happens is you find that somehow are there, because every child has a WhatsApp now, a phone now, and through the phone, the parent is connecting. And sometimes they're a bit nervous. And the more we, make it very clear to them that we want to hear from you, they respond, and we end up learning a lot. So there's a lot we are doing for parents. There's a lot that we're doing for the marginalized people. And maybe not enough, obviously. It's only a small, we've only been here in the field for about 6 years, but it's already become a movement. Now, the Ramakrishna Mission does not tom-tom our efforts, and so we don't take out advertisements or don't do that. That is not the way we function. Therefore, probably many people haven't heard about it. We keep a very low profile. Our overheads are extremely low, and we just grow the way we think has to grow. So that's what's happening. But a whole lot of difference, we believe we have started. Now, if you look at this particular map here, ladies and gentlemen, you will see that we have our representatives all over. Representatives means they are young resource persons. Some of them are pure volunteers, in the sense, not only do they not take anything from the fund, but they actually contribute also to it. But there are a few people who are straight out of college, maybe engineering graduates, maybe other graduates, who really don't know what to do next. They're bright, they're intelligent, they are a bit confused. They don't know what to do next. So then we have an internship program for them. We train them how to be master facilitators, how to go from school after school, how to guide parents, how to guide teachers, how to guide children, and so on and so forth. And when they spend 2 to 3 years with us, suddenly their confidence level is very high, and they have a choice either to remain in this line with us or to go and find something else. They do much better in interviews, they know exactly what they're going to do, and they become far more employable if they've spent a couple of years with us. They are compensated to a small extent. We rely on CSR funding, which has been dwindling on account of COVID. But whatever little CSR funding we get, we use that for 2-3 things. One, for salaries of these young people. We don't want them to be dependent on their parents anymore. We use it for our kits, which are beautiful kits, extremely world-class kits we have, which we give free to schools. We use it for us to move around. We have to move, and we go, a second class and stuff like that. But when this is before COVID, we actually move to schools, stay wherever we can, keep our overheads extremely low. But whatever it is, if you want to do a nationwide exercise, you'll need some funds. So that is what CSR funding is all about. And Ramakrishna Mission, being highly accountable, extremely careful about the reputation they have, usually we find that our quarterly reports, etc., were extremely well received. And we somehow have managed so far on CSR funding. Yes, please, let's move on. I'll just take you through a couple of slides and finish. Yes, Reena, ma'am? If I just take you through a couple of slides, and then after that throw it open to questions, it might probably help. The Vivekananda Institute of Values is coming up in Haryana. This is Ramakrishna Mission, Gurgaon. We are going to start Vivekananda Institute of Values from next year. And there, what will happen is that we will have value-based interventions for different stakeholders, not just schools. There'll be colleges, there'll be, ED teachers, there will be foreign participants, anybody. Wherever we think there's a demand, we will work. But ideally, we'll have to make it self-sustaining, because we may not really get too many grants anymore. And therefore, to some extent, we'll have to, become a totally non-profit, but which it is already, but we don't know to what extent CSR funding will be available. Let's move on. And the next slide, please. So now talking about why our approach, Mr. Ambas, you want to say something? Okay, so now this slide might be of some importance, because I'd like you to please look at it and see how we dealt with the challenges we faced and how we overcame the resistance. Primarily, most teachers feel that they're already doing too much, they're doing a lot of administrative work, they're overburdened, and they would rather stick to academics. They really don't want to go into something like values. Many of them say, anyway, we are talking about it in assembly. Anyway, we are introducing it whenever we talk. What is the need for a special attention on values? So even getting them to understand that we need a certain space for children to forget whether they were good at maths, they're good at sports, they're good at English, whatever, forget all that, and give them space to sit down and think of themselves as human beings, where they start on a totally different platform. That convincing teachers of that is very tough, because we're all actually under the impression that marks matter, and with marks we'll get a certain employment. After that, they don't really worry about whether people are able to retain their employment, whether people are stressed. All those things don't seem to concern them that much. Once again, I'm quite sure, as Mr. Gupta rightly said, not every school is like that. A large number of schools might be focusing on that. In our experience, a majority of schools are focusing on marks. And so what happens is, teachers are saying, oh, there's no special recognition for us. Why should we do this? We want some kind of recognition. Now that itself goes contrary to trying to do something, because unless, if you're going to get paid for it extra, or you're going to get some sort of recognition for it, once again, the spirit with which you do this will become suspect. So now how do you convince people who are actually very transaction bound? How do you convince them how to do things? Then, of course, we all know that this is not measurable. Just 3 years intervention or whatever it is not enough for us to make out what actual outcome has happened. How do you capture that? Even in regular schemes, which all of us have done in government, we know how long it takes and how we cannot attribute that particular everything to that particular scheme. We know that. So here, when you're talking about intangibles, it's even more difficult. Getting funds for intangibles is very, very tough. People will give you funds to build a hospital, to build a bathroom, to build something, but they are not going to give you money for mindset transformation, which nobody really has the time for, although it's extremely, extremely valuable. Getting the right oriented resource persons, it's very, very tough. Getting the right people who are willing to commit 24 hours a day to this kind of task, and to keep your ego completely aside and to allow people to go on and on, it's not easy. It's very, very tough. Then there is an attrition in schools. You train them, you take them up to a certain extent, then they leave. And then you again have to train them. Similarly with resource persons. So all these are a bit of a problem. And then, of course, this pandemic, the low internet penetration, one phone for the whole family, which child is going to learn? And if so, why would they listen to values? They would rather listen to maths or science or whatever it is. Now, how do we overcome this resistance? We really work hard at understanding what are the barriers which people feel towards accepting value education. And we work on each and every barrier. And we try to empower educators and parents to discover what we call a new vision of education. This is a huge, I'll have to spend a lot of time explaining what the new vision of education is. It's primarily this, that each child is enabled to discover that they have a lot of potential and they can manifest it. And the teacher acts as an enabler, as a guide, and not as a person who tells them what to do. These are some aspects. A lot of peer learning happens, non-judgmental atmosphere and so on. And that's how it happens. Then we offer something which teachers find stimulating and useful in their own lives. The program that we have, many teachers who actually go through it, they say, oh, it's not for the children really, is it? It's actually for us. Because you find that it's impacting them, their attitude, their behavior, their character, ABC. First the teacher, only then when there's a change in the teacher does it go to the child. We have sustained engagement with stakeholders because of the reputation Ramakrishna Mission has. We are able to connect with a whole lot of stakeholders and have continuous hand-holding. Like I mentioned earlier, we lead by example. Servant leadership is what we believe in. We encourage peer learning and continually respond by improving our programs. We do not think of it as rigid. We are constantly improving, constantly making it relatable to people. We conduct free workshops on how to use digital platforms and all sorts of other free workshops. And we use the language of that region and go from school to school. So there's a lot of legwork. There's a lot of connect that we do. Yes, please. Next slide. So I'll keep the slide here and then I'll throw it open for questions. Anyone who has any particular the point of view may please ask me, and I will try and see what I can do to make it a little clearer. Did I make sense so far? Was I clear so far?
You have really. We are grateful to you.
Thank you so much, sir. So when you look at this, what you will see is that we have a relevant, when we say relevant content, which we use, what we are saying is from the child's point of view, from the teacher's point of view, from the school authorities' point of view, from our nation's point of view, we've actually built the content. And how have we done it? Have we done it overnight by ourselves? No. We've got some absolutely critical thinkers who have the right kind of background come together, and this whole thing has happened over years. For every slide that we use, for every idea that we introduce, several have been rejected. And how have we rejected? By piloting, seeing whether it works with children or not. Not just off the cuff like that. And so the whole method is very, very important. One is the content which we give. That is possible. Anyone can write content. But what about the method? How do we make children feel it's okay for me to say whatever I want? It doesn't matter. I can be free to express myself. I can be free to disagree. Yes, Mr. Sachdeva?
Ma'am, thank you for a very good presentation. Very informative. I just have one or maybe two questions on this subject. How does our Indian education system in the schools compare with those abroad? For example, the US, UK, Germany. And why is it that despite so many problems in our education system, which you have also brought out, do our students who have done their school education in India perform so well abroad? If it was that bad, they wouldn't perform so well when they go out of India.
So, sir, it's not bad or anything. Okay. They definitely teach the 3 R's very well. Your writing, your arithmetic, your reading, all that is, I mean, even there are some problems, but I suppose all over the world it is. So we already said that there is a low, I mean, if you look at the number of children who a teacher has to deal with, if you look at the constant transfers of our teachers, if you look at certain difficulties which teachers, the infrastructure, if you look at all that, we still have a long way to go. But we are much better than we were before. That is there. Now the question is, why do our children do very well about? Because they are aspirational. The children who go outside are usually aspirational and they will do well. Any migrant who goes outside, anyone who goes outside to study will do very well. All our children here also are doing very well. The point is, are they bringing out their full human potential? If you take an average employee in a factory or even in the government or anywhere, are we really original thinkers?
The que-
Yes, sir.
The question is, when you compare values, for example, a student educated in India, you you compare his values with the student who's been educated, say, in the US. Is there a value comparison being made? A measurement which would give concrete result? Look, those guys are better or we are better. What is the scale used? By how much are we better? Because until we have some sort of a measurement, the the feedback and how much to improve may be missing. Because see, qualitatively, I agree, a lot can be said. Yes, everybody will agree. If you speak in a qualitative way, yes, this is a problem, but this is a problem all over the world. It's a universal problem. And if you extend it even beyond that, it's a mankind problem. So, but we have to be concrete in measuring the value system of our education and the value system of an education abroad. And how much do they differ, and what are the steps we need to take to fill the gap, if there is any?
So that is not our mandate in the Ramakrishna Mission, sir, because we are not really interested in comparing us with anyone else and doing a national level study. I'm sure, in a place like IIT, NRC, maybe they'll do it. But we in the Ramakrishna Mission are actually trying to connect with people and make them think for themselves, understand how to think, understand how to choose, and things like that, which is what we are working on. So we are not really worried so much about whether we're better than someone or worse than someone, all that. We are just looking at transforming the way children think about problems.
How do you measure your success?
That's what I told you. So we have a survey where we look at the shift in thinking on certain parameters. So there are scientific tests given. You just show pictures. Depending on the age, the child will be able to, right in the beginning of the program, how do they respond to a particular challenge? And at the end of the program, how many of these children are responding in such a way that you see a lot more initiative is taken? Are there more children who are willing to make mistakes and learn? Or are there children who say that? So our idea of values are something as simple as that, where we are trying to make children have self-belief, because we believe if the foundation of self-belief is there, they will be able to make choices. We also enable them to understand how some choices can be beneficial not only for them, but for a large number of people, and how some choices they may think that there is a short-term benefit for them, but how in the long term that may not benefit them. These kind of open discussions are what we have. So it's not so much about actually measuring or anything or proving to anybody anything. We know it because we connect with them, so we know that we are making a difference. So that's the small level at which we are operating. Like I said, 5,700 odd schools with lakhs of children. Yes, Mr. Vinay Shankar. Mike, please, sir.
Right.
In our country, almost 50% of the population is somehow connected with agriculture, and and most of the children and the society want government-paid employment as the first choice. But the result, and everybody can't get a government job, so they are dissatisfied. I find that a very large majority of people in our society are dissatisfied with what they are doing. Now that obviously must be influencing their behavior, their attitude. Now, for a person who is constantly harboring the feeling of dissatisfaction, how do we impart values which, unless he has self-confidence and, as you say, all the attributes that you have mentioned in your presentation, unless we have that, it is very difficult to practice good behavior and have good, healthy attitude. So how do we address this issue?
So that's what you said and what we said are the same thing, that you address the root cause. What is the root cause of discontent? Why is it that we are discontented? Why is it that we are not able to do anything? Okay, agreed. Agriculturists, there's disguised unemployment. They cannot get government jobs. Everyone cannot get a government job. That is true. Now, can you accept that? Can you accept that reality? Can you then think what else can you do? Or do you just sit and blame everyone? That shift in the thinking is what we're working on. If we keep depending on someone else, all these we've thought it through very, very well. What I'm trying to say is, the more we think that other people are responsible for the sad state we are in and become discontented, we cannot move. But a person with Atma Shraddha, a person who thinks, okay, so this is the situation, now what do I do about it? Is likely to find a situation or likely to work in a collaborative way with others, harmoniously with others. Come up with something, at least make a move. That's what we're trying to say.
And one more thing, the higher level to which one goes or works at, he has more influence in society. I mean, a person who is just working like a laborer and engaged in a routine operation of digging and doing that kind of work, versus persons who are working at different levels of authority. Now, the behavior of each different classes affects the society in a different manner. Now, those who are at more senior levels of influence, of influencing society, they, I think their impact is greater. So, do we have a mechanism of instilling values in them?
Yes, sir, we do. We have the ability. Several government institutes like HIPAA, many people have reached out to us, and we have spoken to civil servants, we've spoken to others. But let me tell you that even though they have the ability to do so, even though they're in a position of strength, etc., they may not want to do so. So that is and what happens is because if we find people who are already know all the answers, then it becomes a little difficult for us to actually help them unlearn. This whole process is about unlearning. And if we are not having an open mind and not willing to, whoever it is, I'm saying, we find that the relatively less educated, the relatively less, they are equally quite intelligent and everything. And if we open up, they are able to talk. We find that several of them are making huge differences in their community and all that. betterindia.com is full of stories like that. So at all levels, a person who wants to make a difference, especially if it is not ego-driven, can do it. Mr. Ambas, you wanted to ask something?
No, I wanted to give my input in terms of what you have said. I am deeply impressed by the efforts made by Ramakrishna Mission, and I'm also beholden to you for all that you have done. As many as 55,000 teachers have been trained. It is right time to make an intervention in the policy formulation and the need for Ramakrishna Mission to intervene or to influence the influencers. I am trying on my own level in curriculum framework, that the committee that has been made. I have spoken to a number of people on that, and they agree with me. The Ramakrishna Mission must acknowledge that it is the teacher who is the great influencer in the personality behavior modification of the child, as you are yourself doing in training progress. So how Ramakrishna Mission is going to influence NCTE to adopt these innovative methods. You have very rightly said that unlearning and relearning is the major challenge. A fresher learns, but we are challenged with making people unlearn what they have done and then relearn and re-engineer their strategies. So these are some of the problems that we are faced with. And I personally feel that Ramakrishna Mission should intervene or try to intervene with various agencies that are imparting education either by way of curriculum planning, that is NCERT, or by way of executing by way of CBSE, how CBSE is going to develop tools for evaluating behavior modification of the child, and the NCTE, which is going to produce future teachers. The kind of rampant malpractices in teacher education, everybody is aware of. So I think that single effort or individual efforts, like various people who are influencers in policy, influencers in policy formulation or things, may not be as effective as institutions like Ramakrishna Mission. I have worked with Ramakrishna Mission for quite long time, not as their monk or as their, but developing programs together. So I think that it is time for some kind of institutional intervention in these three areas. One is the teacher education. I very strongly, unless you make a dent there and the teachers come out as role models for the children. So teacher education program is the one of the second is the curriculum planner, that is the who plans not on learning outcomes but on behavior modification. So intervention at the NCERT level, and the NC of National Curriculum Framework Committee that has been constituted to make an intervention there. So these are some of the areas that I see is potential where Ramakrishna Mission should extend its activity. Right now you are doing tremendous work in teacher training, but you are challenged with making them unlearn and then relearn. Now, if you make a beginning, after 30 years, with the change in the curriculum from learning outcome to behavior modification or behavior outcome, now if you make intervention in teacher training through NCT, after say 15 years, you may have that. So that was the kind of intervention that I wanted Ramakrishna Mission to consider and intervene if possible.
Yes,
that would be a nice idea. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Narayan, sir. Just a minute. Nishan, just take the next slide. Yes, Mr. Yogendra Narayan, please go.
I'm intrigued by the words value education, and I wanted some clarification on that. See, values keep on changing from generation to generation and from civilization to civilization. And if we go back, I was reading the Brahma Sutra these days, and it's finding out the cause of creation. But then it says that by logical reasoning, by asking questions, rationality, you cannot find out the cause of this creation or who created God. So they say that Vedas are the final word. You just accept what the Vedas say, and that is final. And do not question the Vedas. Now, the British system of education has taught us to rationalize, to reason out, to ask questions on everything. So, our traditional value system and the present value system, I see a contradiction. And I think every student in India, either in school or middle school or even university, faces this because either we dissent, we ask questions of the professor, or we remain and say, no, we have been taught that in the Guru Shish Parampara, it's the Guru who says whatever he says is final. So I find that an inherent contradiction in our, the heritage type of education and in what is the new system. Secondly, when you talk about values, which values are you talking about? Values as prescribed in a certain religion, values as coming down from the ages, or let us say values of our elders. Value education is always through either a teacher or your parents. Now, if the teacher is not taught value, which you have taken up, I agree that you have taken up teachers' education also on how to have value teach value education. But parents are there at home. You can't approach them, though you have put them in your framework. And then, of course, a question was raised about the general society, the environment around you, values. So I find this as a conflict. And whatever the NCERT might declare as the textbooks, etc., on value education, I think there's going to be dissonance from every different section of society. I would like your comments on that and how you are solving that problem.
Sir, you're quite right. There's bound to be a lot of dissonance from various sectors of the society on this. But if you look at Swami Vivekananda's interpretation of values, so if you could mute, then I.
Sorry?
So yes. If you mute your mic, then probably the echo won't be.
Okay, just hold on.
That's okay, sir. No problem. What I was trying to explain, sir, is this. Swami Vivekananda actually addressed this issue very well. He was able to look objectively from the point of view of a young, British-educated kind of education and look very deeply at our heritage and way of learning. And he has given us a beautiful interpretation of what values we can start with and how, depending upon our own nature, we can choose what we want to go further. So first we start with some basics. And the basics is self-belief, strength, courage. These are all not things that change from society to society or over time. We are talking about things like that. Courage to stand, of conviction. You know, so values, when we talk about, we are not talking about values like whether a Kap Panchayat is saying that a girl should not have a phone. Not that kind of values. We are not going there. We are not talking about values which might be just a few people's views and temporary and not, we are talking about human values which humanity over the years have considered as valuable. For example, if you talk about love, love in the sense of connection, love in the sense of expansion, feeling the connection with everybody, feeling the unity, that's a value. Now, how do you explain an abstract thing like that? We have our ways. So what I'm trying to explain is that we are pretty clear about what we want to say. Whether other people will listen to us or not, again, is no great work is done overnight. We are aware of it. We are not ambitious enough to think that whatever we say, everybody has to listen. Let people come up with whatever they want to. We have already tried an NCERT. We have every single authority we are already in touch with. We are aware realistically about the politics involved in this whole thing. We are an apolitical organization. We do not want government funding for reasons which are self-explanatory. There are many things which we try to keep ourselves unaffected by. So therefore, we are quite content with our approach. Now, if somebody finds it valuable, wants to listen to us, we'll be happy to go burn the midnight oil and go on and on telling what we believe in. We are willing to work hard. We've done it for NCERT. We've helped with syllabus setting. All pro bono. We've done. So the point here that I'm trying to say is the values that we talk about are universal values applicable across time, across everybody. They are human values. Now, sir, if I could just take you through the next slide, I'll just go to the next slide. Nishant. Now, how does the Ramakrishna Mission, what can we do? See, our main role will be, because we are only a handful of people, we can only train trainers. We have some idea about the approach that should be used for value education. It cannot be your regular syllabus. It cannot be your regular exam-oriented, this is the right answer. If you write this, you're going to get marks. It's not like that. It has to stimulate original thinking, thinking about consequences, choosing, being able to know what you're thinking about. All these, it's different, but we worked it out. What can we do? We can train teachers. If anybody, for example, in their wisdom, the syllabus setting panel decides to take a good look at what we have done in middle school, which is anyway running, the easiest way for them is to look at it and see whether that can be a starting point. But they may not do it because they may think, why only Ramakrishna Mission? Why not include this one? Why not include that one? Why not include that one? And it'll take 3 years. We know all that. So right now we have something on offer for middle school and primary school. If anyone wants to look at that syllabus, it's all beautiful stuff we have, online and offline. If they want, we are happy to give it to them, to have a look, have a discussion with us. That's the first thing we can do. Second, if they want us to train teachers in B.Ed institutes so that they can deliver that in B.Ed. B.Ed is the fountain from which all our future teachers are going to come. Should they not know how values have to be imparted? So there we can help. We can help with any kind of societal engagement, as Reena ma'am and others said. We can help. Will that make a whole bit of a difference? Will we change the whole world? No, we know that. But we'll make a start. So what we can do is, we can, if any of you are in a position to get us to conduct classes for large groups of marginalized people through Doordarshan, we've tried. Then we can conduct mock classes for children. TV, everybody watches. Through TV, through All India Radio, it's a little less. Not too many people are watching that, listening to this kind of programs. But through TV, we can do it. We can conduct workshops. We can engage with people like you who would probably know ways in which we can do it. But remember that we are doing all this pro bono. And therefore, there's nothing that we have. How do we go? How do we go somewhere and do something? Even if the COVID situation eases, if a set of us has to go somewhere and train, the numbers who have to be trained are so huge. Are we going to dip into our own pockets for that? Maybe to some small extent. With that, I will leave our views to you. Just go.